Hi, I'm Steve Sellers with Revelation Comics, and I'm the writer and creator of Blitz. And today we're going to go into the secret origin of Blitz, aka Amy Mason, where I came up with her, the thought process behind creating the character and what kind of led into the character becoming a series the way that it has. I will say that originally Amy Mason was kind of like the character who was taken me most by surprise. Wasn't created in the traditional process that I've done for, say, Night Spider or, for a character like Bloody Shane, even. She just pretty much came out of whole cloth, and the reason for this is kind of interesting. Originally, when I created her, it was for a play-by-post game that I played. I want to say like around 2004 or five, somewhere around there. And what happened was is that I already had Night Spider by then. I had created her sister Miranda, who you see in issue one, and originally she was supposed to be the main character that I was working with. And so what ended up happening was is that I just kind of started creating a supporting cast for Miranda, and the first character I came up with was Amy, and she pretty much just walked off the page and just surprised me by basically taking over like the entire scene in that I was doing. And I just thought that that was interesting, and she was the character that I gradually brought back. And then after a while, it was suggested to me that, hey, maybe you ought to make her a playable character. And so I thought about that. I'm like, okay, I can do that. Because at that point, really the thought process behind Amy was just that I wanted someone who was like Dawn to Miranda's Buffy, as it were. I wanted that kind of character that would contrast with Miranda because the whole thing with Miranda is that she is honest to a fault. She's very blunt. She is very cynical, but is trying to do the right thing. And so I wanted someone who had a contrasting point of view to her. And so with Amy, I wanted someone who was optimistic, who was a bit more reckless, who didn't think ahead as much, you know, that kind of character. And realistically, I just wanted her to be just an ordinary college girl who had a fun-loving personality and was just like interested in music. That was really kind of where she was at first. And but the character just kept on inserting herself in the scenes and wanting to say more. And so I decided just to develop her further, and she became a lead at that point. And so I decided to give her super speed. And the reason that I had done that was because to me, it's like, okay, given that she's a reckless character, given that she's an optimistic, clueless type of person and she's fun loving, I just felt like a power that was a bit defensive but wasn't like Kitty Pryde would have made sense for her. And so, super speed was also a power that had not been represented in the game at that point. And so, I just kind of threw that in there. And so it ended up adding up pretty well because I feel like that power just fits her perfectly. It fits her character conflict perfectly. It fits who she is perfectly. And so that, pretty much was what happened with that. The game fell through not long after Amy became a main. She was involved for a little bit, and then just because personality conflicts. That's it. It happens, and so I had to decide what to do with her after that because I had her, I had Night Spider, and I had Miranda. I thought that they were all really interesting characters. I had a lot more that I wanted to say about them, and so I'm figuring, okay, how do I tell those stories? What do I do with them? And so the obvious answer was just to create the Blitzverse. To create an entire new universe around those characters. So for Amy, I just kind of figured, okay, what elements did we need for the Blitzverse, for that? And it was basically, I needed it to be a superhero universe, revolving around a single city because that was kind of how this thing was structured. It needed to have the kind of physical laws and rules so that she would have the powers that she has. So, that's why I ended up creating a new backstory for her. I created the time dilation device. as a reason for why she can do what she does. Um, the whole junkyard thing kind of grew out of that because I figured, okay, what if she ends up getting her powers because of her own curiosity? That was an element that did come a little bit from the game, but I just kind of expanded it. The character of Minnie came later. After that, I kind of had an idea for her, but she kind of evolved. And so the whole origin story that you see in issue one was one that was gradually developed over a period of a couple of years, I believe. And so from there, she ended up evolving, becoming more of her own character. Sort of taking over, and she really took over the story. I mean, she always did, and she fit very naturally in the lead position. And you might think, well, why not Night Spider? Being in that role instead. He's a really cool character. And I would say that he's probably a co-lead in most respects. Much like Luo Shi is for Michael Nero. But I feel like the story is about her and her growth and her learning from her relationship with him. I feel like she is the viewpoint that we see the Blitzverse through, and so that's why, to me, it was more important to focus on her point of view. And plus, I just love her internal monologues. I love writing her internal monologues. I think that they're a lot of fun. Mainly because her point of view is very distinctive. She kind of allows for more humor. Not that Roland doesn't. I think Roland definitely has his own kind of humor, but it's really more of a subdued sort of old school humor, a little bit sardonic. Whereas I think she is very much more less, I would say, low key than that. I would say she's a bit louder, and I think that really has kind of served her as a character. And really, I just really enjoy writing her. I think honestly, she's probably my favorite character that I've created. In terms of influences of how she was created, I would say the main influences mainly was Dawn Summers from Buffy. Kitty Pryde, I think, to a certain extent. And I would say that's mainly because that character, she's actually my favorite Marvel character. So I think some of it kind of like snuck in just because the archetypes are similar. And also to a certain extent, Impulse from the Flash, although that was probably unintentional. So I would say but I would say mainly Dawn and Kitty are her main influences. The thing with Dawn Summers and why I think she kind of stuck with me was because I had been watching a lot of Buffy at the time. And I kind of felt like that character had been sorely underutilized, or at least that nobody really seemed to know what to do with her. Because she kind of starts off being, the key in season 5, and then after that, it's like they're trying to find things to do with her, whether it's dealing with her stealing things for some reason, or the following season, like hinting that she, is also a potential, or any of a number of things that never happened. And but in the end, most of the time, she's kind of on the sideline. And I had wanted Amy to be somebody who really was more front and center. I wanted a character who was stronger than that. I wanted a character with more of a clearly defined role, but who was also her own character. Like, she took things from Dawn, but I don't think that she is Dawn. I wanted like a little bit more of the sunny personality, more of the internal monologue. The internal monologue does borrow a little bit from Dawn, and whatnot. And those kinds of things kind of went in there, but in the middle of that, I also wanted to have like Kitty Pryde's determination, her stubbornness, her tendency to snark at things from time to time, that kind of thing. But it's all kind of mixed in with more of a light, optimistic sort of sense of fun with that. So there are those. I would say those are like the main elements with Blitz. And really the relationship as well with Night Spider. I kind of feel like there's a Kitty Pryde Wolverine sort of feel with the two of them. But it's not necessarily intentionally based on that. It was one of those things that I just kind of felt like it just kind of clicked when I put the two of them together. Because the light, fun, optimistic character with the darker, more cynical sort of gentleman thief is really, really interesting. Because they both have a sense of humor and they're both lighter characters in some respects. But with Roland, he's trying to kind of hide a deep, deep darkness inside him. And Amy doesn't have any darkness in her at all. She's just somebody who is, I would say, is very much a ray of sunshine, and that's the thing that I love most about her. She's able to find that optimism, even when the rest of the world doesn't seem to want to give her a break. So that's the thing that I really love about that character. So I think that should give you at least a starting point with her. I hope that you read Blitz #1 if you haven't already. It is available on all major storefronts, Wicked Publishing, Comixology, Amazon Kindle, Global Comics. You should be able to find the first issue there if you want to see the origin. And hopefully we'll have more to come from her soon. And until next time, this is Steve with Revelation Comics signing off.